Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mariah. I'm a rotational physiotherapist in the UK and I post things physiotherapy and lifestyle related. So if you're into that, subscribe, notifications to all so you never miss a video. So this video is obviously for people who are looking for band 5 roles in the NHS typically. You may be looking actively or you may just be looking around and want to know what you may need to do. So in this video, I'm going to give you some, tips on how I prepped. This may not be how you wish to prep, but on how I prepped for my interview, formats of interviews, and I'm also going to share some potential questions that you may get asked. Okay, so hopping right into prep. So you've done your personal statement. They've said, they're like, oh, I like it. Rang you up, hey, or dropped you a text. I got a text saying, hi, you got an interview for this date, particular date. So, cool. I'm gonna set the scenario for me. At the time when I applied for my job, it was like a spur of the moment thing. I saw the job pop up and I was like, these rotations don't sound too bad. Maybe I should go for it. I was umming. And then something in me was like, just go for it. You get it, you don't. Just give it a go. Either way, it's experience. So I applied. At the time, I was on one of my placements. I want to say like my second to last placement or something like that. But I was on one of my placements and I was speaking to one of the band 5s that was on the placement with me. Well, not on the placement with me, they were working. And I was speaking to them about how I saw this job and I applied for it, but I'm not sure how to prep. I'm like, hopefully they give me like 2 weeks or something to prep in between. I just kind of wanted to make sure I had a job lined up before I graduated. I just didn't want the stress. Anyway, that same band 5 was lovely enough to give me their prep, and I just tailored aspects of it to suit me and how I would answer things, basically. And that was very helpful. So in the time I applied, I got the text saying I have an interview. It was maybe not even a 2-week window between then and the interview. I was still focusing on doing my dissertation. I was stressed, to say the least. But we move. So anyway, so we've got this Word doc. Okay, I'll turn it in a sec. Let me just mute these messages coming through on my screen. But I'll just speak through it first. So they sent me a Word doc. This Word document is like maybe, how many pages? Like 17 pages long, this Word doc they sent me. And on the document is basically like giving smart answers. I think the term's smart, yeah. You get smart answers and smart responses to questions that you may potentially get. So the questions cover like your core areas. So they cover like MSK questions you might get. So we're talking like red flags, all those kind of stuff, and like caudal kind of back pain, blah 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 blah, them kind of things. Or you got your like neurological things like stroke. What are the signs of stroke? What would you do? How would we work with someone with a stroke, like physio perspective? And then you got your rest ones, your prioritization questions, blah blah blah, like that. So we went through the document, and I like formed it in that sense. Also put the typical interview questions you'd get, like what's a scenario where you've done something great in a team, or what's a scenario where you had conflict and how did you resolve it. I'm basically just telling you everything that's in this document, but like things like that you would need to know, like NHS trust values, like what's the values of that particular trust that you're applying to, what's just NHS core values, questions like that. I've kind of jumped ahead, but that's all that's in the Word document. So I went along and I was like, so one of the questions we've got up here is, another one, like, why do you think the job would suit you? Like, what would you be able to bring to the job? Let's see. Physios and MDT. What else did I put in here? Okay, so obvious one, a big question they're going to ask you, is, especially if you're applying for rotational or not, static or whatever, you're still going to be asked this question, very highly likely. Prioritization. They want to know your thinking. Like, would you put let's say they usually say is you have a new patients come in, they don't always specify what they come in with, but let's say they came with a fall. New patients come in with a fall, you have a follow-up patient, and you have a chest patient. How are you going to prioritize these 3 patients? I picked pretty easy examples. Naturally, you're going to prioritize the chest above all because it's a chest patient, and then you're going to screen the new patient, and then you go to the follow-up. However, if the follow-up patient is medically fit, I would do chest medically fit, their new patient to screen, depending on what the new patient came in with, and also, but yeah, that's just how I would do it naturally. So they're gonna ask you questions like that, but with more serious scenarios, and really want to know your reasoning. It's usually not that simple in terms of those 3 easy examples, but it's just an example. So they'll ask you questions like that. You've got obviously, if you're applying for like a more specific role, like in a certain speciality, they're going to be speciality specific questions. So if you were applying for pediatrics, it will be questions maybe like, oh, what's the difference between like respiratory differences between an adult and a kid, some vital signs for a kid potentially, what services are offered, blah blah blah. Questions like that you may get asked. Now, thinking back to my interview, I do remember being asked questions like about my prioritization. I was asked questions about conflict, and like the more specific questions were still pretty broad because it's a rotational position and they don't expect you to know it all. They understand that you're coming from uni or you're coming from wherever you may be coming from, and this may be your first role. So they understand that, like, that you have a base level of knowledge that they will help you expand upon, because you're not going to come into the role if you know it at all. You know what I mean? So, on the question, I remember having a question about stroke, and it infuriated me a little bit because I knew the answer they were looking for, but I knew the answer they were looking for, but I couldn't give it to them because I hadn't had the experience to be able to give it to them. So it was, I was like, oh, for God's sake. They always ask a question about red flags, by the way, so make sure you remember that. They always ask a question about red flags. Like, always. So if you take one thing from this video, they always ask a question about red flags and prioritization. So like that. But moving on to that, since I kind of merged those two into one, I want to talk about formatting. So formats are very different. I personally only attended one interview. I applied for 3 different trusts. I attended one interview, and if you want to know why, then you can check out my video, like the whole applying process and like why that happened that way. But anyway, I was invited to 3 different interviews. I was invited to the one at my current trust, and that was over Zoom. I was invited to one at another trust, and that was going to be in person, a group setting, and a written portion. And then I was also invited to another one that I believe was going to be, it was in person. It was just like a normal 1-on-1 or 2-to-1 type of interview. Interview formats are really, they change depending on, I'm assuming, the needs. I think people are sliding a lot more to personalities as well, as like the clinical knowledge that people have. People want to know that your personality is going to fit into the trust, it's going to fit within the teams that you're trying to base yourself in, essentially, because there may be someone who's great at the job, but if they're not going to merge well with the team that's currently there, it's kind of like, don't really know how I feel about that. So it's kind of like a disadvantage. I'm not saying go in and pretend to be someone you're not. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying be mindful that you want your personality to show in the interview. You want to bring a little razzle dazzle. I mean, I brought a little bit of humor into mine, just showing who I am, and they got what they bargained for. Like, I'm always making jokes at work and everything, and yeah, they got what they wanted in that sense. But yeah, a lot of places are shifting to not you just saying, oh, I'm good at teamwork. They want to see it. So they may do like an in-person group interview, get you to do a group task, see how you work with the other people who are there on the interview, see how you answer the questions, see that, and they really look at you as a whole person rather than just looking at you as what you put in on the paper, which I think is a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's also something that you have to be mindful of, and especially if you're a quiet person, I think those settings aren't for everybody. I think I think of myself as an extrovert, but I also have some introverted traits, and I think I would either sink or swim in that scenario. But I think for some people it's a bit nerve-wracking. Some people, some trusts, from what I've heard, don't just do a group aspect. They do a group and a 2-to-1 aspect. So let's say you were scoring a little lower in the group portion, because maybe you're not a person who likes to speak up a lot. You don't want to speak over someone, or maybe even your idea's already been said, which is a bit annoying. I hate when that happens. You have the 2-to-1 scenario to be able to build up those points, to increase your chance of you getting the role. But honestly, all I can say is the interview process it feels nerve-wracking, but it's not too bad. Just be yourself. Make sure you show and you expand on the things that you put in your personal statement. You want it to reflect over clearly. It's basically the same type of things you would do if you were applying. You go back to when you were applying to be on the physio course. Yeah, well, in my case, physio course. But these things kind of really apply to any job, really. But yeah, just think they picked me for a reason. Don't think, oh my god, they're doing an interview. Do they even want to give me the job? Da, da, da. They've given you an interview because they want you. Just remind them as to why they want you and why they want you above anybody else. And also just remember, you wouldn't have gotten this far in the process if you weren't good enough. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's my tips on that. If you feel like I'm missing anything and you want any other questions, obviously you can hit me up on the Instagram account at rayray.yt. But I think I'm going to change that handle soon, but I'll let you know. But yeah, enjoy. Good luck on your interviews. And be sure to check out some other videos related to the same topic. See you guys.